Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised.
3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome back, Criminal Mischief Nation, to another bonus episode of Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Branden. I'm your co-host, Branden, along with the lovely and talented Carolyn Osorio. Carolyn, thank you again for putting up with my nonsense for another episode.
Another edition of Nonsenseville.
Another edition of Carolyn Puts Up with Branden. Yeah, that's what we should call the show. How was your week?
You know what? It was kind of a lot. Busy week. I was doing a shoot over the weekend, and it was kind of different for me because it's something that I'm going to bring to Criminal Mischief, but I can't do it until the show comes out, so it's going to be a long time. So I was sitting there listening to the interviews because they had like the detective and the prosecutor and victims' families, and so it was just a kind of more of a fly on the wall type situation, and it was just really intense. You know, when you have, as you know, with shooting, and you have like, it's not like a cattle call of people, but it is kind of like a cattle call of people, you know. Absolutely. And so anyway, it was just you know, it was just kind of, it was a crazy case, really, really sad, but kind of emotional. So, but I was so grateful to be there, which I know is like weird because I'm talking around it, but it was just like, you know, it's like when you sleep like a rock, you know how like when you know how kind of, I guess that's kind of how I gauge my stress level with certain things. When it's over.
How quickly you fall asleep.
And then you just, yeah, and you just like, because like when you're in it, you don't realize kind of how stressful it is.
Yeah.
And then when it's over, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know.
That's how, I mean, you're describing it. When I was a stage actor for years, okay? And no matter how many performances, no matter how many plays, I was always like almost paralyzed with fear before the curtain went up. Every single time I would have this flight response saying, just get the fuck out of here. Just go. Just go. You don't want what's out there, man. You don't want what's out there. But you know,
but
then
you do.
But then you do, and you're professional. And then, but leading up to it, it's so stressful. There's so much anxiety and fear and tension that, you know, when I would get home and just melt into bed and just collapse. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much, I mean, my jaw is like hurting this morning. I was like, did I freaking like do something to my jaw? Because when I get tense, I just,
that's where you hold it all.
Well, just all in different places. But yeah, I was like, what the fuck did I do to my
I'm
jaw?
here. I'm like this.
You're here?
I'm like that. Yeah. I got such a funny story about this. So I was in an acting class. This is 25 years ago. Okay. And this guy was touted as like, the actor was whatever. He could get the best performances out of it, whatever. Okay. That's what everyone in LA says. But this guy, like you hear it from 3 or 4 different people. You're like, all right, let's check it out. So I go to his thing. And
so you go to his studio?
I go to his studio, right?
In somebody's backyard.
In his garage. Yes. Okay. But I'm there, and there are a couple of like actors that I write. There are people that like had done shit. So I'm like, all right, this kind of seems a little bit more legit. And the first thing he does is he has us all like kind of stand in a circle. And the first thing that he wants to kind of diagnose, right, is how relaxed we are. Because there's this actor studio thing from back in the day in New York where it was all relaxation. You just have to have no tension anywhere in your body, or that's going to be evident in your performance. Okay. So he had a little bit of that in him. So he wanted to see how relaxed everybody was. So basically just walked behind everybody and, you know, and felt how loose your neck was and your jaw and then your shoulders. Okay. And there was one guy who was 2 dudes over from me whose shoulders were basically in his ears. Like that was just how he walked in. I thought maybe that's just how he was built. Okay. And so David, the instructor, comes up behind him and pushes his shoulders down. Okay. And then the guy, boom, they go right back up, right? As soon as David removes his hands, the shoulders go right back up. And then David goes, it's okay, dude. Just fucking relax. You're so tense. He said, you're carrying everything right there. And so after like the 4th time, David forces this guy's shoulders down, and the guy takes a deep breath and then just breaks down sobbing.
Oh my
As
gosh.
soon as his shoulders were relaxed for like
Oh
10
my
seconds, he was just,
gosh.
oh,
Hey, don't ridicule him. I can tell
I'll
from the way
ridicule
you
the
did
fuck. No, I'm
that.
just kidding. It was like, it was so uncomfortable. Some people laughed. I might have laughed a little bit just because that
Come
emotion,
on, are you kidding
hold
me?
on. It was so unexpected. It was so
First
unexpected.
of all, I don't know
Right.
why you could have thought that it was unexpected if
So
somebody was
unexpected
like this.
that it would be that immediate, right? That as soon as you're not allowed to hold your emotions here, you're going to start weeping. It was and David even said, he goes, it's normally not that easy. Okay, that's 20 years of therapy I just gave you in 30 seconds, dude, right? And the guy didn't stop crying, Carolyn. He cried like an orphan for 2 hours.
You
Okay,
know what? Here's the insight that you're missing, okay? Is
please.
that he probably didn't even know. And he
Agreed. No, I, I,
and
I
then this act and having someone touch you and
yeah.
having all of that attention on you and like the release of it and then the recognition of like I'm sure it doesn't surprise me at all, although I think that it sucks that people started laughing, but it's like it's probably a nervous laughter because you don't know
Exactly.
what
It's
to do. You don't
100%.
know what to do when that
It
happens.
was shitty, but it was definitely a nervous laughter because we didn't know how to. We're a bunch of dipshit actors in LA who would die for that level of emotion. Okay, first of all, second of all, for that guy to just fucking tap into it like that, and it was real. It was it was powerful. It's like
I'm
Daniel
surprised that
Day-Lewis.
you didn't think that it was a con.
I didn't think it was a con. No, I was much less cynical back then. But the greatest probably actor of all time, Daniel Day-Lewis, he has an unauthorized biography on him called The Fire Within, and there's a really interesting story that's true. Um, Coming out of drama school, his father was like the poet laureate of the UK. Like he came from like an artistic pedigree, and
Yeah.
he goes to I forget what school, but one of the top ones, and he's like the head of his class, and he comes out and he gets right onto a West End production of Hamlet, which is like their Broadway, okay, the West End there, and he made it through halfway through the opening night performance and broke down sobbing because he finally confronted the relationship with his father and never did a play ever again. He's
This
never
is
been on
Daniel
stage.
Day-Lewis's father or Daniel Day-Lewis himself?
Daniel Day-Lewis confronted on stage with the conflict that Hamlet was feeling with his dad and all of that.
Yeah.
It became in front of a whole crowd. It became a cathartic moment in his life, and he broke down, couldn't stop crying, couldn't finish the performance, and it affected him so deeply. He's never been on stage since. He's only done films. Yeah, and he admits that it happened, but he won't talk about it.
So what do you think of that? What do you take away from that?
I think that both of those incidents that I just talked about were the result of some kind of unexpected emotional door opening, right? That you're not prepared for.
Hmm.
And I think rightly they just kind of didn't try to stop it. Like this guy in this silly
I
little
think you're
garage.
I think you're ripe for that.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there. I
Really?
spent I spent a year crying on a psychiatrist's couch because I never dealt with my dog when my dog died when I was 15. Okay. Like I never dealt with it. And then I finally did. And I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. Honestly, for a year, like every session for a year, I was a puddle. Yeah. So
But
I've
did
been
you
there.
ever have that happen on stage
No,
in
I never
that?
had it happen on stage.
Okay.
I was chasing it. I was looking for it. I would want it to
Wait
happen.
a second.
Yeah.
You were chasing it?
Yeah. I was chasing some kind of that some switch would go off or something where I would just have an uncontrollable emotional response because I was so open to the material and so open to what was doing and to what I was doing and so open to my own emotional kind of depth or lack thereof, that I would have some, but no, never happened.
But maybe it was because you were chasing it. Like
Maybe. Yeah,
you
maybe.
probably thought this is my next level as an actor, as opposed to like
Yeah.
I'm really going to be honest and this is what happens and I'm not guarding my
Yeah.
emotion.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but it's never, yeah,
Hmm.
never
All
happened.
right. Well,
Never
there you
been there.
go.
Yeah.
Psychology 101. Hey, everybody out there, if your shoulders are like this,
Let them down.
let
Let
them
them
down.
down.
Let them
Feel it,
down. Yeah.
Feel it. Let it
Hmm.
go.
I know. And I like you always kind of make fun of me because this is like what I do sometimes and it's fun. And you're giving me that look right
No,
now, like
I make
stop
when
immediately.
you call that dancing, yes, then I make fun of you.
What are you talking about? This is just this like get your groove
That's
thing.
move. It's like
What? How could
80s
you
at the club. That's 80s girl at the club. That's okay. You do
have
you. It's all
what
right.
the heck do you think you are? Let's see what you got going on. I've
You
seen
can't handle my heat.
okay,
If I
I
start
know, but
moving, if I start
I've
moving, it's not
okay.
fair.
All right.
Couldn't
Well,
handle
you
it.
know what? Whatever works. Move your shoulders, get loose. I
Yes.
don't care if you look like you're from the 80s.
Yes.
Do
Yes.
it.
Do you like a good massage? Do you like a shoulder massage or do you like a
It's
spa day?
interesting. I don't, and of course I'm gonna be outed as a weirdo. I'm just gonna say it. I don't enjoy massages
Me
because
either. Me either. I knew we were friends for some reason. That this is it.
they
Okay.
stop. Okay.
Correct. I don't like people's hands all over me.
For me it's not that
Oh,
necessarily. It's not that.
okay.
What it is that I feel like I'm I don't know if it's just a product of who I am, but people just talk to me. And
Oof.
so then when I'm getting a massage and I don't want to listen and I just want to relax and to have people talking all the time, when you're trying to relax, it's not relaxing, number one. Number
Sure.
two, if they like say that there's something messed up with me, like I would always carry my babies
Oh,
on
my
my
wife,
hip.
same thing. Yeah.
And this person I went in and she was like, wow, your hip's like 20 yards down from your other hip, like just not relaxing. Like you don't want someone to be like,
Who's your
not
masseuse?
relaxing.
Is like a Duck Dynasty person, your masseuse? That,
I'm just saying when I've had
hey, your hip is really low
when
compared
I've
to.
had when I've had massages and facials and things like that, I just don't enjoy that aspect of it because if it's
Yeah.
not exactly what works for me, like I like the person that's touching me, I like
Yeah.
the vibe, like it's just becomes like stressful for me. But
Well,
that's why I love like the
throw up a
sauna.
boundary. Throw up a boundary and say, hey, it's going to be quiet time. Going to be
I don't
quiet
want to
time while we're doing this.
fucking do that.
Oh, all
I
right.
don't want to do that because it's like then there's that awkwardness. Then I'm like,
Oh, okay.
so you would be okay saying that?
I say that to every Uber I get into.
What? Wait a second. What do you say?
Sure. I say, hey, I'm going to be on a call. I don't mean to be rude, but just in case they want to start chatting me up and where you from, it's it's just not how I like to listen to music because I get car sick when I'm not driving. And when someone tries to talk to me, it makes it worse. So,
Okay, so you listen, right, but like you're not saying don't talk to me because I don't want to hear you. You're saying,
of
"Hey, I'm
course
taking
not.
a call."
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah,
I'm
so there's
listening to a podcast, I say, or whatever, just
I
to let them know it's not talkie time with me because you'll make me want to throw up because I get car sick,
I
right?
know. But there's just something like, "Hey, I don't want to talk to you because I'm not into you." It just is a little bit different, you know?
Well, I would say, hey, if I go into a massage, which I've done a couple times, and it always just reinforces the fact that I just don't like it. But I tell them, I go, hey, I'm here to relax and have a conversation. Is that cool? And they're like, absolutely. I appreciate it when people are honest about what their, expectations are of the service. So, mom's the word. Word. Thank you.
It's
I'll let you
not
know
that
if
I
I need
wouldn't
something.
do that because I don't have the courage to do it.
You just don't
It's
want to be
just
rude.
the
You're a nicer person than me. That's cool.
Well, no, that's not true. Because I knew you were going to say that. That's not true. It's the combination of the whole thing. It's like I don't want anyone diagnosing something that might like just impact like I just don't want that. I don't want the whole thing. It's just not it doesn't and but I appreciate my husband loves he gets pedicures. I mean, he loves being pampered and he
Wow.
yeah. So, I mean, it's just I get it that people love it and I see why they do. That's why I love the sauna and the like that's what I want to do.
That's
The
my
sauna
jam.
and the and
Sauna
the
and
and the
steam.
and the steam. Exactly. That's my relaxation and
That is
like,
my jam.
so that's what I do. And I'll do that for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm there.
That's big time. That's
Yeah.
that's serious. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about this. Sorry, because I mentioned off air that revisiting this case reminded me of things that shocked me and things that upset me. But the what I it's hard for me to get past is Mr. Bremner early on in the first couple minutes of the episode, how he's talking about confirmation bias and first impressions, and that 80% of jurors have their mind made up after opening statements,
Yeah.
and how important opening statements are.
I
Like
know.
that, that's crazy.
I know. And
Even though
that's
the
why
judge
I'm
tells them you got to hear all the evidence, you got to do all that. That's
And that's why I feel like I'm always harping about confirmation bias and just our unconscious bias, like
yeah.
how we all have it. It's not just Americans, it's all of us as human beings. We look for things to confirm our biases. It's just really weird. So if you think, oh yeah, Amanda Knox did it, and then you see a news story with it, you're just confirming what you already want to believe and do believe.
Well, and then he gave examples of studies that were conducted specifically to prove this theory. And the people, even when they were told,
Right. They still wanted
they
to
still
believe.
like, no, nope, sorry.
I know. And
That's
they were told this is your confirmation bias coming up. Now
no, 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 not at all. Absolutely not. Your test is flawed. It's weird. It's like,
but that's what you're going up against. That's why when you go to a jury trial with your peers, look out. Because if they have a bad opinion of you from the get-go, that's why I was talking about Brian Koberger last week and
yeah.
how people thinking that, if he's been diagnosed with on the autism spectrum, like the jury, whether he did it or not, they're just going to think that they could potentially have a bias against him based on his lack of emotional responses because they're looking at him throughout this entire trial, right? Which makes
Absolutely.
sense, you know?
Absolutely.
Whether he did it or not is beside the point, but they make a good point of like I'm not capable of showing emotion but it's not because I don't care or maybe he did it and he you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So it's kind of it's
It's like,
brutal.
you know what it's like?
Mm.
Sorry, this is my millionth movie reference. It's like that the opening sequence in Shawshank Redemption, where you see Andy Dufresne being condemned and the judge saying, "You're a particularly cold and unfeeling man,"
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And because he wasn't showing emotion,
Yeah, of course.
because he that's just was his nature, right? That's
Hmm.
that's just how he was, you know?
Yeah.
And it took a jail yard friendship for Andy to open up a little bit. Okay.
He pushed his shoulders down. Yeah, he needed
He
that.
needed to put you need to have his shoulders pushed down by a couple of convicts. And
Yeah. I know it's scary. And then the also thing they threw out there was 25% of people who were exonerated from DNA have found that they had a coerced confession. So these
mm,
coerced confessions, people just don't, they have biases against, well,
well,
why would you say you did it?
the other example he brought up in the beginning was families that are shown the DNA evidence exonerates the person who you think is guilty.
Yeah.
They're like, nope, you're
Nope.
still guilty. It's dangerous. The human
I,
mind is very dangerous.
absolutely.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah, so that bothered me. And then,
Okay.
and then the rest of it's basically I could just say all the slut shaming that went on with Amanda Knox.
Yeah.
That and the just kind of the freedom that she allowed herself, right? The sexual freedom to go overseas and she'd been a little bit restrained in her college years, and didn't go have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Go have
Hmm.
fun.
I know,
You
but
know,
this is what I'm going to say they, because I don't know who I'm like particularly to like put women in their places. Like this is what could happen,
sure.
if you own it and you do what you want, and you have that freedom, this is what could happen.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I'm sure that's how it's framed, by
Yes.
especially the older
You should know
generations.
that because you have daughters now. So like maybe
Yeah,
you
but
didn't
I'm good. I'm
think
happy
about
that that's foreign to me because that's not my way of thinking how I'm raising them,
right, but no,
Yeah.
knowing that that's what they're up against,
Yeah.
it's good to know because that's what, that's been going on forever and it's still going on, It's not like
Yeah. I'm
it's
raising them.
changed, but
Yeah, I think I'm raising them to be able to tell someone to go fuck themselves if they bring that bullshit to them. I've seen them do it already, and it makes me very proud. So, yeah,
it's great. It
yeah,
but there's subliminal messaging though. There's the outright
yes,
messaging, and then there's all this stuff underneath. So,
yes.
and that's really hard to kind of, there's just so many levels to it. You know what I mean?
What did I see today? Something as early as like the early 60s. I read a news report about, and he had the mugshot of this, pretty mid-20s white woman. Okay. And then they had her arrest report. She was arrested for protesting equal civil rights for women. And where she was arrested, it was somewhere in the South. That idea was so foreign that they made her go through psychological testing. Like, how could she? There's something broken in her brain that she thinks she deserves what she's protesting for. Yeah.
And this is the 60s, right?
This is the 60s.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I know. I know. I
Pretty
mean,
crazy.
there's still stuff like that, crazy stuff like that going on today. You just have to be as aware of it as possible,
Yeah, what's
you
all
know?
this like there was it was gosh, within our parents' lifetimes at least, where a woman needed her husband's permission to like get a credit
Get a
card or
credit card. That was the 70s. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It was like,
the
hey,
70s.
I know. I know you're laughing. You're
Because
laughing.
that's so insane.
It's funny because I have this conversation with my daughters all the time. And I say, because they might say something about my mom or why she didn't do this or why she didn't do that. And I would just explain to them, like, you don't understand what it was like because you have more choices.
Yeah.
She didn't have a lot of choices. She got married young.
Yep.
She didn't even think, oh, I can go to college. Like that was never encouraged.
Yeah.
So it's like even with like, my daughters, like they just don't they get it because they're really smart and they've, highly educated and all of this, but like just the basic, like you laughing, like it's the 70s.
I
Like
know.
it's just
Like we
it's
were
hard to
born
it's
in the
hard to
70s.
it was it right.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom. And I try to put that into perspective for them because I think that you have to remember where people come from,
Yeah.
in order to not be like super judgmental about the choices that they may or may not have made.
What's the other thing that's crazy that's still oh man. It's something in sports where I might be wrong on this and I'm sorry, but I know it's one of the major tennis tournaments. I'll
Hmm.
say Wimbledon.
Okay.
Okay. Where up into a certain point, like deep into the 70s, the female champion was like Mrs. Brandon Morgan, not her name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And that's still how it's portrayed on the walls of the tennis club. Wimbledon champions, it doesn't say Sue Jones. It says
Hmm.
Mr. William Jones. I mean, Mrs. William Jones. Like,
Hmm.
doesn't even have her name on it. because that
Yeah.
was how, yeah, yeah, yeah. That, and then the other thing in the 70s, but when my parents were still married, uh, if a banker told my mom, you need your husband's permission to get a credit card,
Mm.
she would, oh my gosh, because my mom was the responsible one in the relationship. If my dad were left in charge, it meant financial ruin for
Right.
anyone in his orbit. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So it was like it stuck in her craw that they're giving her a hard time.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think that that's great that you saw that, when
Yeah.
you were young. I mean,
Yeah.
you've said, your mom was the type of person or is the type of person when she got divorced from your dad that she didn't want his money. She
Yeah.
wanted to do it on her own. So I think
Yeah.
that that's, speaks to kind of, who you are.
How angry she was. That's what it speaks to. How angry she was. She was so angry. Like I would say medium angry from women are like, I'm going to take all your shit, motherfucker, and great and good for them and go get it. When you're like maximum angry, it's like, I don't want anything that you've ever even been associated with in your entire life except for my children. That's it. Otherwise, I want nothing of yours ever again, ever. That's how angry my mom was. Yeah,
Well, it sounds like she had right to be angry.
she did.
So, but you got the lesson of like, hey,
Absolutely.
work hard. She worked two jobs or whatever
I
to
got the lesson, don't piss off your wife. That's the lesson that I got.
I think that you got more than that.
Tons more. I was making a
I
joke.
think you
Yes,
got more
a
than
lot,
that.
a lot more. So, all right, so let's talk about what happened unfortunately, to Miss Kercher. I wish that audio from her sister was a little better. Not only is the audio a little wonky, but then she's in like some Birmingham accent, which is a very thick kind of accent, so it's
Mhm.
tough to kind of make out. But there were so many coincidences that they wound up living in the place together. That there were four dudes living in the basement. Oh wow, that's convenient, right?
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
um, but then and then so like, how did Amanda like get even? How was she even a suspect in it?
I think that just the way that she was acting, we've talked about this so many times.
Yeah,
The way that she was acting, and they wanted to portray her as this,
temptress.
poor villain, like because she was acting. And I mean, I think she said later on, like, yeah, I was acting kind of weird. I was doing cartwheels in you know, she's 20 years old. She's just in a foreign country. She doesn't speak the language. I mean, she's got a year under her belt. Like that's not a lot. And she's only been immersed in it for 5 weeks. I mean, so I just think that they wanted to confirm this bias that they had against her, and they wanted to rope all these people in, even when the evidence with um, Rudy came into play. They still wanted to make this conspiracy work. They still wanted to make, the prosecutor Manini was just it's like, don't look over there. We need this to work. We need this evidence to work. And so I think that just from the get-go, they wanted to think that she did it and framed every single piece of evidence they had and every single thing that they said into getting her to confess, getting her to like incriminate a completely innocent guy, her
Oh,
boss, who had to go
oh,
through that.
that poor guy.
I mean, completely innocent. And she writes this this thing, this paragraph after the damage had already been done, and she'd said, "Yes, I had met him." And yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine, when people do these false confessions. I think that's what's so hard to take. It's like, why did she do that? But then it's like we don't know what that kind of emotional turmoil and I mean, it's almost like psychological torture.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally told her she was HIV positive. I mean, can you imagine being 20 years old and being told that and not having access to your parents or your family or your friends, or like you're just alone, everybody speaking a different language? Like, I can't even imagine what that was like for her.
It's the false accusation thing that got me thinking. Have you read Cormac McCarthy at all? Blood Meridian or All the Pretty
Oh,
Horses.
no,
Um,
I'm familiar with his work, but I haven't
yeah.
read. Yeah.
Um, so one of the greatest literary characters really in the English language, and it's not just me saying it, but like the judge in Blood Meridian is compared to like Shakespeare's Falstaff. I mean, he's such a robust and dangerous and evil and fully formed character. He's this mountain of a guy. He's like 6'6" and 350 pounds and bald and fiercely intelligent. But you're introduced to the character in the rain in this cow town, western town, and it's muddy everywhere, and there's a big tent, and there's a revival going on. There's a preacher going on, a preacher, and you don't know nothing about the judge. You don't even know what his name is yet. You don't even know. They just describe this character walking into the back, and he's a huge guy, and he has this booming, bellowing voice. And in the middle of the service, he name checks the preacher, right? And says, I know this man. 3 weeks ago, he was in this other town and he was caught and he was molesting children and he was blah, 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 and he killed them and he gutted and like all of this stuff, just like a 45-second monologue about this guy. Okay. And just because of the power of his presence and he was a stranger and no one thought not to believe him, they believe him. And within a minute, they've got this preacher strung up and he's dead. And that's your introduction to this character, how he's able to just manipulate and use his mind and his voice and his girth and his powerful, like physical. I mean, it's crazy. And so the power of false accusations, that's fictionalized, obviously, but it happened in this case also. And it makes you think if somebody really wants to fuck your life up, they kind of can.
And that's what's so terrifying about
Yeah.
it. The Manini guy, I'm not going to say is like this guy,
Yeah.
but like it sounds like it's very apropos because he was getting everybody on board to his way of thinking. And it wasn't until he himself was charged with a crime and was like sent to jail, for wrongdoing that people are like, wait a second, maybe we shouldn't have listened to this
Maybe we
guy.
backed the wrong horse there. Yeah.
Yeah. So fortunately, none of the people had been strung up in this case like he probably would
Yeah.
have wanted,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know?
Sure.
So,
But it's
so
like that's why swatting is so dangerous. Swatting when like you call 911 and say like, say there's a neighbor that you don't like, right? And you're like, oh, hey, this guy, I just saw him running around and he had a gun and he's threatening to kill his family and he's in the house. And so the police have to show up and they heard the word gun, so they're gonna have their guns out. All it takes is one rookie with a nervous trigger finger to open fire and kill somebody, and that swatting fucking happens. That's a legit thing, and it's
I've never
real.
even heard of that.
You've never heard swatting?
No. Like people
Because
calling the
if
police for no reason.
yeah, there are certain keywords or phrases you can use that will make the SWAT team show up and have like high-powered weapons pointed at the windows of your house. Yeah. And it's happened to like you could look it up. There
Are,
have been some.
are these like the same videos subset that your brother's sending you about
No, no,
the
no, no, no.
people
This
who
has
are
been in the news. Like some celebrities have been swatted. It's happened like quite a bit, and it's all just false accusations from people who are just trying to get somebody in trouble or get them jammed up or get them killed or what. It's
that is so
yeah. Oh,
diabolical.
absolutely.
I wish I
Absolutely.
would have not heard of that because that's like so scary.
FBI
Jeez.
investigating rise in swatting. This is just from 3 days ago. Yeah, here's the definition. The action or practice of making a prank call to emergency services in an attempt to bring about the dispatch of a large number of armed police officers to a particular address. We found out he was a victim of swatting after police surrounded his home on Thursday, to use it in a sentence. Yeah. It's a criminal harassment tactic that involves making false emergency calls to trick law enforcement into sending a SWAT team to a specific location. Swatting can be deadly and puts the targeted location, law enforcement, and community at risk. Yeah.
So is the people who've been caught for swatting, are they doing it to get back at someone as a revenge thing, or are they doing it to just mess with law enforcement, or both?
It's not to mess with law enforcement. It's specifically a punitive act against a person that you have some kind of beef with. Yeah.
And what is the crime? What can they be charged with for doing that?
Felony false, felony use, false use of the 911 system, lying to law enforcement, like purposefully, like lying to police, false police report, like all that. I
That's
think someone even got,
crazy.
yeah, I think someone, I don't know if they were successfully, but someone tried to charge someone with attempted murder, because of how, you could kill
Yeah.
somebody with that. Yeah. Say you
Yeah.
don't know. You're just like, dude, you're taking the fucking trash out. And then there's cops everywhere. And you think, wow, what are they here for?
You
Boom, boom,
know,
boom. Yeah.
people suck so bad. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's the thing. People are capable of such great good, but my
Oh
God,
yeah.
I mean, it's like that is so evil. That is truly evil to mess with someone like that.
Yep. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. So it's not quite what happened here, but it's in the ballpark.
Well, yeah, I mean, this Manini with this religious fervor
Yeah.
and wanting to believe that she was in a satanic cult and tying it to All Souls Day and just it seems like we're in the 70s, not 2007. You know
Sure.
what I
It
mean?
does. It
It
does.
doesn't feel like this,
Archaic.
it's like, and if you get like wrapped up into something like that, like her whole life,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Yep. So then, I mean, talk about just an odyssey, which I can't wait to see the Chris Nolan movie with Matt Damon playing Odysseus. But the odyssey of the trial with her, and back and forth and back and forth, and freed and then jailed and then ultimately exonerated, and the Anne Bremner of it all, who's a friend of yours, and I've met Anne a few times. She did, great job, and really kind of hung in there. But what was your takeaway with the Italian justice system?
I wouldn't want to get caught up in it. I can tell you that right now. I mean, it's truly freaking terrifying.
Yeah,
We think our system is got issues, but that's next level of I mean, to be completely innocent of something,
yeah,
to know that you're completely innocent, see that being swept up like this and it being powerless to control it, being portrayed as someone that you're not, and just to have this go on and on and on for so long. And fortunately, in her case, she had parents that had, Anne Bremner on speed dial.
yeah,
They could, she had a coalition of people behind her in Seattle and beyond who were like, hey, we see through this. A lot of people they don't have that kind of those kind of connections. And I'm not saying anything like, oh, she was this privileged, white girl. I don't mean that. I just mean that, she was lucky that she had that because this could have gone like a million different other ways. And if she hadn't, she'd probably still be rotting in an Italian jail, thinking, boy, I just got really screwed,
they
you
don't
know?
have the death penalty in Italy, right? Do they have life without parole in Italy?
I don't know.
It seems like these European countries eventually, the max is like 25 years. Like that
Yeah.
that that maniac who shot up that Danish island or whatever 20 years ago.
Mm,
He
mm,
got like
mm.
25 years. He killed like 47 kids.
Yeah, they're
And
definitely different there than what we got going on
yeah,
for sure. But
mm,
yeah, I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd want to be in like a Scandinavian country if something like
yeah.
that would go down.
But what was she
Definitely.
do you know what the maximum time she was looking at, Amanda? If it went the other way for her?
I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, me either. Well, I'm glad that it worked out, obviously. Um, and I feel just awful for the Kercher family. That's
I know that's the thing that gets lost in this whole thing.
Yeah,
We've talked this
sure.
entire time,
Yeah.
about and haven't talked about
Well, sometimes that becomes the story. Look at the OJ trial. It wasn't about
yeah.
Nicole and Ron Goldman. It was about OJ and jury nullification and all of that. Right? Like that's what good lawyers do, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I know, but
Yeah.
it's really in the interviews that I saw with their family, you can tell that it's like, do we have to talk about Amanda Knox again? Let's talk about Meredith. Let's talk about what our family has lost. I mean, that's just another layer that, isn't as exciting and thrilling as the idea of Foxy Knoxy,
Well, no, I think
But
I think there's a deeper reason that's less sensational and more practical, which is, and again, I sound cold, whatever, but there's nothing you can do about Meredith at this point, right? But you
yeah,
can prevent a second tragedy with an innocent woman going away for it. So maybe that's why a little bit more of I'm not saying the Foxy Knoxy thing didn't factor in. It definitely did. But,
mhm.
the fact that she didn't do it and that she was innocent and that, I think that's led a lot of people to focus more on that, right or wrong. But yeah, it's just, like I said, tragic for the Kercher family and really happy for the Knox family that it's finally behind them now. Gosh, it's almost 20 years since
I
this
know,
is.
and Raphael, her boyfriend, I mean, like what he had to go through.
Yep,
And
yep,
I mean, it's just, they just had a narrative that they wanted to to move forward with, and nothing that would be presented, they just didn't want to believe. I mean, I think ultimately that's what this case is about, is this confirmation bias, and it really shows,
yeah,
like, hey, if you want to see what that is, look at this case.
yep,
Because we all have our biases, and it's really important to look at them and not just go with what people say, and make these, especially if you're on a jury,
yep. Oh gosh, that scared me about jury trials now, that they make their mind up. What if, I mean, knowing that information, say you're on trial for your life and your attorney just has a bad day at opening statements. And
Or
the
you
other
just
guy,
have a
and the other
bad
guy, or the
attorney,
other, the other
or
person
you
just,
just have a bad attorney, Brandon.
and the other attorney just kills it. You're like, I am fucked.
Yeah, yeah,
Ah, wow.
yeah.
Wow. Well, good choice to revisit this one. That was interesting to revisit. She went on to, I know she had a podcast for a while, Amanda Knox. I don't know if she's still doing it.
I don't know if she's still doing her podcast, but I don't know what she's
Yeah.
up to. But
Look,
I
I
think
hope
this is,
she's living a peaceful life and raising her family in peace and just enjoying herself. And you think she'll ever go back to Italy?
I'm, sh- I'm sure I wouldn't if I were her.
Italy's great though.
I'm not saying it's not great. I've never been, but I'm just saying if I were
Oh,
her, I mean,
you can go to Rome in the Roman Forum and you could stand on the exact spot where Julius Caesar was assassinated. Pretty powerful.
and did you do that? Did you
Oh,
play it out?
I have nerded out like me in Rome, like my wife, my in-laws, no one wants to be around me because I'm just constantly pointing, and that's what this is, and that's what they're like. No, just shut up. Let's just enjoy ourselves. I'm like, but you're missing this thing, and they're like, no. Except my youngest daughter, she's like, "Oh, Dad, I love it every second of it. Just go. Tell me all about this." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. You're my favorite."
Nice.
Yes, yes.
She's probably exactly like you.
I hope so. I hope so. But anyway, all right. Well, listen. Thank you again. This was awesome. If you enjoyed the episode, Nation, please share it with someone who you think might enjoy it. Go over to Apple Podcasts, rate and review the show. It helps. Every engagement helps the algorithm. And Carolyn, anything you'd like to add? Anything you want to tease for next week? Any last words
Well, just last words. Okay.
for the episode?
We will see you next week.
Yes, everybody. Thank you for listening. And until then, stay safe out there.
From Cloud 10, Criminal Mischief is a pie-in-the-sky production recorded in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. We're produced by Brandon Morgan and myself. Music by Soundstripe. I'm Carolyn Osorio, your writer and host.